earn more now or when you are at DOAC? Hello, welcome back to a slightly different setting, but we'll get to that in a minute, for a Q&A episode. It feels like forever since we've just sat down and had like a really good catch up on all of your burning questions. I asked on Instagram what you wanted to know, and you flooded my stories with really interesting, different and unique questions that got me very excited. So I collated 8 of them. I've got them written down here. I spent the last hour going through them all, giving me loads of ideas for future content, which I love. And we're going to spend the next however long going through the questions you've asked. We've got a really nice mix here of like personal branding questions, brand, social content, personal questions, what's the word? More intimate questions about like money and finances, which obviously I will be really honest about. And so I think we just get into it. We've got 8 questions to get through. So let's go. The first question, what is your top advice for people starting to build their personal brand on Insta? I loved this because it was very specific to the platform. I very rarely do sort of grow your personal brand on very specific places. So if you're starting out on Instagram, what I need you to do is I need you to ask yourself what you're going to stand for, because your biggest tidal wave that you've got to fight against is the sea of content, the sea of saturation of content on Instagram, on all platforms, but on Instagram specifically. You're fighting against a lot of content on there. And the only way people are going to stick around to watch you and then stick around to follow you, tell their friends about you, build momentum, is if you stand for something. Unfortunately, there's some advice floating around on the internet right now that says you are the niche. Unfortunately, that is only true, I'm gonna hold your hand when I say this, for about 0.1% of people who get started. Yes, when you grow to millions and millions and millions of followers and you've bought an audience and a community on that journey and they are so bought into you, you do become the niche because you are what they're following for. But in the early days when you're getting started, it's actually really unhelpful advice to say you are the niche. You're not the niche. People aren't actually interested in you yet. They're interested in what value you can add to them, what problems you can solve for them. And the way they identify that, the way they remember you, is by standing for something. So I'll give you some examples. Mia McGrath is a fantastic example of this. So Mia quit her full-time job, I think it was about 18 months ago now, to go all in on content. And she coined this term, well, one of her followers actually commented frugal chic. She then coined the term. And now people associate her with frugal chic. Really, really smart, because everyone wants to feel and look chic, but they want to do it on a budget and they want it to be accessible to them. And that's what Mia's all about. Mia is relatable to a core, like so relatable. But then she shares how much money she's making and that becomes aspirational. And that is the sweet spot you want to always occupy, is that beautiful, beautiful middle ground of relatability and aspirational, which is what Farron Clark spoke about on this podcast, which I'll insert here, really worth a listen. But what's been so amazing about Mia's journey is that she stood for something so clearly. People knew exactly who she is, the girl who speaks about frugal chic, to the point where she's landed a book deal 18 months in. She had 6 publishers fighting for this book from her, which is called frugal chic. It's coined around this term because when you stand for something, people know what they're following, they get so involved, they get behind it, and they want to back it going forward as well. It's a really, really smart move to stand for something. Izzy Utterson, another person, immediately I think the glow up. She owns the glow up. She stands for the glow up, and it comes through in all of her content, and that's why I follow her. Another example is Matilda B, for example. She is the hostess, the queen of the dinner party, and that's what she stands for. So I know what I'm getting when I think about her and when I see her content, and it occupies a space in my brain. It's genuine psychology that our brain needs like storage cabinets to file information, and if it doesn't know where to store you, it will simply forget about you. So it needs titles and labels and association to store you somewhere. And people don't like this because they're like, I don't want to be put in a box, I don't want to be niched down, which is totally fine. You don't need to niche down, that's not what I'm saying. You don't need to only occupy this little space forever. But you need to stand for something so people can remember you, especially when you're getting started. So the first thing I'd say is like, what do you stand for? I would say I stand for ungaping. I don't stand for that. Ungatekeeping the creator economy and the brand world. Like, I really want to give people access to spaces and information that I get access to that other people don't, to ungatekeep this world. That's really what I stand for and what I want to stand for through my content. Okay, now you stand for something, people are going to be able to remember you. You need to develop a signature series to get them to come back. So if I was on Instagram and I was starting from scratch, I'd be setting a challenge of like 30 days to do something. And every day I'll be posting part of that signature series. So people have a reason to come back. And I think that's really important. I think so often you're able to get in front of the right people. To hit follow is an expensive decision. And you've got to convince people that you're worth coming back for. I.e., you don't just solve their problem once, you're going to continuously solve their problem and help them on their journey of whatever they want to achieve. Signature series will do that. I would also be looking to experiment. Those first, when you're getting started, there's so much opportunity to experiment. Test, test, test. Use it as your playground to try things out, test new things, test hooks, see what resonates, test styles, test formats, test structures, test the language you use. Do you go really conversational group chat vibes, or do you go really formal educator vibes? Like, test what resonates and then do more of that. And then I'd also get really clear on like what your first 30, 60, 90-day goals are, because that will help you measure success as well. Because ultimately what's going to happen, and I mean this in the nicest way possible, what's going to happen is you are going to give it a go. You're going to stand for something, you're going to start the signature series, and then you're not going to see traction, and you're going to give up. I've seen it happen so many times, because really the only way to grow on social media is like compounding consistency over time. Compounding experimentation equals results. So if you don't know what you're measuring as success, maybe you just say follow account. It doesn't actually make any sense for the goals you're trying to achieve. Those goals in the first 30, 60, 90 days should be more about the input than the output. So the goal on how you're measuring success should be 10 experiments run in the first 30 days, 30 pieces of content posted in the first 60 days, 10 hours put aside for filming and analysis, i.e. you don't just film and put it out there, you give yourself time to analyze what's working and what's not as well. I'd be measuring success by input versus output. I think that is so important when you're getting started building your personal brand on Instagram. So that's my advice if you're getting started building a personal brand on Instagram. Let me know if you have any comments below, and I will happily do a full video deep diving into that if that's of interest to people. Okay, question number 2. YouTube or Instagram is the driving force between speaking engagements, or LinkedIn? Okay, so it's saying, where do I get booked? How do I get booked for my speaking engagements? So I will say, initially, there was another question actually that said, like, how did you get your first ever speaking engagement? So I'll tell you that story first. I was posting content about my journey being behind the scenes at the Diary of a CEO. So I would post behind the scenes content. I would always also post about how I was growing a team and scaling the content there and the brand systems. And I'd connected with other creators during that process. And I think I probably had, I'm gonna say somewhere between like 10 and 20,000 followers on Instagram when Bronte King reached out and said, hey, I have this group called Gals Who. This was really early stages of it. And we're hosting our first in-person event. Would you come and be the inspirational speaker?
Scratch the record, correct statement. I am just editing this episode. Yes, I'm editing this episode myself. It's important to stay on the tools, as I've said many a times. And I just went to scroll back to try and find the initial messages between Bronte and Gals Who and me. And I was like, be nice if I can include the original messages. I messaged her saying, hey, I'm going to put the message in here, the original message. I messaged her to say, hey, I'd love to do an event. I think your audience would be perfect. I'd thought through who the perfect organization, the perfect group would be to host this event. I knew her community was the perfect overlap. And I asked her if she'd be open to doing it. And it took a few months between that message and the event happening over here, us little babies, for that to come to life. But I messaged her first, okay? So that's how my first in-person speaking event came about. And I made sure I recorded it. I made sure I got content. And the circle started from then. I reached out, okay? No fee, I reached out myself. Correct the record. That's how it all began. Okay, back to the vlog. Hope you're enjoying.
But it was an amazing experience for me to gain exposure, to practice, to try something new that I hadn't done before. And I absolutely loved it. I loved it. I loved the girls who were there. I felt so energetic afterwards. My friends came to support me and watch. I absolutely adored it. And I'm always so grateful for Bronte giving me the opportunity so early on. And the community she's built is just, it's so incredible. It's so inspiring. But now, where do I get booked? So I think LinkedIn is probably one of the more important platforms But I get reached out to across all my platforms. I say speaking, but like it's a massive industry. You get corporate speaking, whereby the banks, for example, have budget for speakers to come every year, or the law firms, or like those big corporate speaking opportunities. And then you get like the conferences and industry events. And then you get left of field speaking opportunities that you don't really see coming, or internal budgets from small companies, or there's so many different types of people booking speakers, people putting on their own events. And I would say the corporate side of speaking lives more on LinkedIn, but the industry side of speaking lives more on Instagram for my industry. So for me, it's really important that I'm on both. That's probably the most important thing. And showing my ability to speak on both is really, really important. But then I've actually had speaking gigs come through YouTube as well. I guess what I'm saying is there's no one size fits all. It's understanding who you're trying to reach. So for me, I'm trying to reach the corporate bookers, but also the people running their own industry events. And I need to be in front of both of those. So knowing who you need to be in front of and then deciding your platforms based on that. There's no like one platform fits all for anything. I will never, ever, 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 you'll never find me do a video on this of like who should be on what platform. It's like based on your own goals. There's no one platform that does anything for everyone, unfortunately. Wouldn't that be nice? And then the truth is now for my speaking is I get a lot of word of mouth inquiries. So either people recommending me from previous talks to new talks or new events. Bookers often book for multiple events. So if they book me for one event, they might book me for another event. And like once you're in those circles, it really does sort of cascade in your favor if you show up and do a good job, obviously. And then additionally now I do have a speaker agent. So they are booking on my behalf, pitching on my behalf. And that is another way. So that's more of an outbound method than an inbound method. But I would say like 80 to 90% of my talks inquiries and speaking inquiries still come as a result of my content inbound. My content sits at the core of everything I do, cross-platform. That was question number 2. Question number 3. Are you ready for this one? Do you earn more now or when you were at DOAC? I'll be honest, and it's probably not the answer you're necessarily expecting. So I was on a fixed yearly salary at DOAC that pretty much went up every single year that I was there. And we had bonuses. Now I am a limited company. So it's not really comparing like for like. All the money that I make through brand partnerships or speaking gets paid to my business. It doesn't get paid to me. And then I take a salary from my business. I think people don't talk about this enough because I think when they see people or creators, I don't know, doing a 6-figure brand deal or whatever, that's the business that gets that money. If they want to take that money out, I mean, you end up with basically, if you want to take money from the business, you basically have to pay like 50% in tax. There's lots of arguments that suggest you should sort of take less money at the start anyway, when you're building the business, to keep more money in the business. So the salary I pay myself is actually lower than when I was at DOAC, but the money I've made in my business is about 4 to 5 times my annual salary at DOAC. Does that make sense? So my annual salary total at DOAC, I have made, and it's gone into my business 4 to 5 times that amount in the last year. Well, this year so far, which is obviously we're in August. So there's still time to go on that as well. But the amount of money I take out of the business and pay myself is less than the monthly amount I was taking from DOAC. So that's the reality of this. Like, yeah, I'm making way more money in my business, but I'm not paying myself that as income for loads of reasons. I have a really healthy, profitable business, and I want to reinvest that money into hires, resources, and people to grow the business further. And for tax reasons. Like, if we're being really honest, like in the UK, you are so punished as a founder for taking any money out of your business that it doesn't make sense. So there's obviously different things and different ways you can go about things. That's why you work with a really good creator accountant who understands the world of business you live in, to understand how you can pay yourself like dividends and expense different things so that you end up spending less money as well because because things are being put through the business. But yeah, the business finance side of things it was a real eye-opener as to why it's really hard for businesses, because if you want to pay yourself anything or reward yourself for the work you're doing, that comes at a huge cost. But anyway, that's for another business. That's for another video. But yeah, hope that answers your question. So the question, do you earn more now? I guess you could say yes and no. But it was also a choice. I choose to pay myself less. I choose to pay myself an amount that I'm really happy and comfortable with every month. And we'll leave that one there. Okay, question number 4. Oh, I loved this question. Okay. So many people on IG have different frameworks for brand and content strategy. How do you choose? Well, first, obviously, you choose mine. I'm joking. The thing I will say is choose. I actually don't think there are, personally. I don't think there are loads of different frameworks from people who actually know what they're talking about. I think there's loads and loads and loads and loads of advice from people who have no evidence of it working or have no evidence of having actually done it before for anyone or anything. I think what we see a lot of is people manage to, in different waves of algorithms, i.e. when short form on Instagram blew up, people were able to ride that wave and drive a load of followers using that format. And now what they do is advise people on how to grow a brand because they were able to grow their follower count during a certain moment on a social media era. The same goes for LinkedIn. So there are a load of people who rode a wave on LinkedIn where, for example, you could post infographics, those sort of one pages of a framework or something, a lot of them created using AI. And they were able to grow followers like crazy. And now they sell courses on how to build a brand and content frameworks. And I think there must just be a lot of imposter syndrome floating around. That's all I can think, because surely all these people realize they're selling a course based on like air and fluff and nothing of any substance. So my response to that question would be only trust people who have built it with evidence for someone else before. Not themselves, not just their own personal brand, evidence of being able to build and scale something else. I could talk a lot on this topic for a long time, but I really do think when you listen to, and taking me out of the picture, right? Take me out of the equation, but go and listen to like Caleb Wilston or even like Gary Vee or even Farron Clark on that podcast. I said, anyone who's actually done it and built it, go and listen to them. And I think you'd probably be surprised that a lot of us are saying the same thing in reality. A lot of us who have actually like built and scaled anything before all have like a fairly similar approach. Everyone will have their nuances and like different techniques and little hacks to do it. I think you can always tell if people have been on podcasts and spoken about it in detail as well. Like if people have gone on a podcast and had to speak about it for like an hour and a half, like their content strategy, you can really tell the people who know what they're talking about based on actually doing it successfully for other people versus people who just rode a wave and now sell courses. The other thing is like there aren't any hacks to this. So anyone who's selling like a quick hack or a quick win, like that's when you know probably don't stick around with that person. The reality is it's like a long game, like most things in life, unfortunately, and you've got to stick at it for a while. So that's what I'd say on question number 4. Number 5, okay, a little personal one. What's the progress update on the website and the book? Both great questions. The progress update on the website is it will be with us very soon. And someone else asked, like, how do I find out about your next speaking engagements and things like that? It will all be on this website coming soon. It's going to be something one of my first jobs is to get that up and running live and running nicely. I've had all the photography done, all my new imagery is done. I've got someone working on the brand details. So like, it's coming. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm excited to have that up and running too. And the book. I can't say too much. Soon. Eyes and ears peeled. Soon. That's all I can say. You'll know. But it's happening. It's happening. There's things happening behind the scenes. But I want to take you on that full journey and that full experience. So yeah, we were a little delayed, a little postponed for various reasons, which I'll get into when I talk you through what's been happening. That was a really mean one for me to answer because I can't actually say that much. Website coming soon. Okay, 6. I loved this question. Can you explain breadcrumbing for a brand in detail, in brackets, for a brand that hasn't launched yet? Oh, yes. Breadcrumbing is essentially leaving sneak peeks and teasers and things that get people excited for the big reveal, the big launch, the moment. And I was actually listening to the Hot Girl Pickles duo over on Camille Moore's podcast, The Art of the Brand. I've written about them so many times, as has every other marketer under the sun. But they had a really great moment when the host asked them, like, what was your decision to build in public? Like, why did you decide to build in public? And they just looked at each other and they were like, we're Gen Z. What other way is there? And I just loved it because it just felt so real and innate and organic. And then they finished that statement by going, and because we had no budget, so we didn't have a choice. Like, content was the obvious thing to do because it was free. And they did a wonderful job of breadcrumbing their brand before it launched. So they did this amazing hook that was like, we've just quit our corporate jobs to build a pickle company. They didn't have a product yet, but they were bringing people on the journey and creating that build in public in real time to get people excited for when everything dropped. They'd also do sort of like, what flavors do you want, and let the customer feel like they were building it with them, which is a really, really smart way to build a startup. Salt Guys obviously did that really well as well. But my favorite thing is like when big brands breadcrumb their launches. Something we did a lot at DOAC. Even if it was like a guest, I think some podcasts do it really well, where they do like teasers and they share things that like are coming up for it, like little Easter eggs. Obviously it's like the Taylor Swift Easter egg phenomenon. Like, she's always leaving little clues and little like gimmicky things that get people excited and get people talking and sharing and anticipating. I mentioned her already, obviously, on this podcast, like Farron Clark with her big ASOS announcement did a really good job of breadcrumbing. It really depends on the business or the brand. I mean, we did it for when we launched community service. We've been interviewing for that role as well. And someone said and reminded me that we like properly Easter egged that launch and breadcrumbed that launch. Breadcrumbing is essentially, it involves content. It requires content. But say I was launching a lip gloss. I'm not. You might start to see in the background, intentionally, strategically, emails or plans that talk about a lip gloss. You won't see any details, but you might just start to see it. You might start to see more pink. I realize this now sounds ironic, but like, you might start to see more pink in my videos. You might start to see some samples in the background of something. You might start to see me going to meetings where I can't talk about it. And all of these things start to build a picture or a puzzle in someone's mind that they are trying to work out. Alex R with the launch of Real Actives. Breadcrumbing was phenomenal. Like a year and a half of breadcrumbing, doing tutorials, skincare routines, showing samples that she can't talk about, going to big meetings in New York, and then the billboard where the puzzle pieces were literally put on. It really is just an anticipation creating technique. It's like getting people excited before the thing happens. Odd Muse do a great job. They've got this like beautiful suede jacket that Amy's been creating for I think 18 months now. And people have been anticipating it coming out so that the point when it comes out, it will probably sell out. That's the tactic. That's why people breadcrumb. It's like anticipation, conversation, shareability, cultural zeitgeisty moment, sell out product. That's why we do it. It's really just a marketing tactic. But yeah, if the brand doesn't exist yet, it's really what breadcrumbing actually is just building in public. It's like taking you on the journey, making people feel like they're part of the journey. It's really worth going to listen to that Hot Girl Pickle episode actually on that topic. But yeah, it's one of my favorite things to do. We did it when we launched the We Need to Talk podcast. We created these billboards using like Photoshop AI and asked provoked different celebrities on these billboards to get them all chatting, and they went viral and people were sharing them, and the celebrities were like, who is this? And we would just say like, Sam Thompson, we need to talk. Or like Pete Wicks, we need to talk. And not only was that breadcrumbing for the launch of the show for people to get intrigued and excited about it, we were also breadcrumbing the celebrities in like a booking technique to get them to come on the show too. So that was a double whammy. That was one of my favorite things to do. Like my favorite things to do is like, how can we drive anticipation for a launch? It's like the thing I love, probably more than anything else. Once it's launched, I'm like, okay, cool, on to the next. But obviously that's where the hard work starts. Of course, most people love a pre-launch, a lead up to a launch. And there are so many mechanisms and techniques that I could go into. So let me know if you'd want a whole another episode on like launching. Maybe that would be fun. Maybe I could do that. But yeah, ultimately it requires content and distribution. So you can't breadcrumb really, I don't think, if you hadn't built a brand yet, if you didn't have content. So thank God for content. Where are we up to? You're just in number 6, so we're on to number 7. Okay, number 7, a bit of a personal one. Did you postpone your wedding? Thought it was going to be this summer? No. No. I think that's all I'm going to say for that one. No. No. I'll say no and watch this space. That's what I'll say. 8. Final question. How are you decompressing and looking after yourself? And I wanted to finish here because it really leads into what I want to talk about at the end of this episode. So it's Wednesday today. You're saying this on Friday. And on Monday, I just drove down. No, that's not true. Yesterday, I just packed up the car and drove down to the sea. That is in all honesty because I've been having a hard time. I think coming back from Cannes, I think summer always does this in general. I'm hiring, I'm signing with an agency, I'm going through this shedding moment of what my business is going to be and where it's going to head. And a lot of questions were like, what's the update on the business? What's the update on the business? I've got about 4 different business ideas that are currently all being tested and experimented with at the same time. And I'm really hoping that I'm in this moment of growth that's challenging me, that's pushing me. And it's a lot. It's a lot. A lot of my brain and world is occupied by work again, which I love. But I did have to call a bit of a circuit break and come down here just to get away from the noise, because I think there are so many opinions on everything we do these days. There's so many thoughts and feelings and people telling you to do this and that. I mean, social media can be a lot sometimes as well. And I'm working when I'm down here all this time. I just needed somewhere else to come and work and just be by myself and not have thoughts and opinions and feelings. So this is what I'm doing. You might remember if you're new here, you won't know, but if you might remember that I've got a non-negotiables list in my notes app. And whenever I'm feeling a little bit out of whack or I've been prioritizing the wrong things for a little while, I come back to it. And one of my non-negotiables, you'll know one of my non-negotiables is always having my nails done. It makes me feel put together. It also means I've had to go and spend an hour and a half away from my phone, away from work. So it's really important. One of them is to be by the sea and see water. It's so calming for me. It's so important for me. It nourishes me. It brings my nervous system back into we don't need to run anymore. We don't need to run away from anything anymore. You might still need to run, but we don't need to run away from anything at the moment. And this morning, I started my day with a sea swim, and I just sat on the beach for 20 minutes. And don't get me wrong, I love London. My world is London. I would never leave London, and only probably to go to America. I haven't also listened to Chrissy. Sorry, so many recommendations in this Q&A. You can tell we haven't chatted in a while, and you can tell I'm by myself. I'm not chatting to anyone here. Chrissy Chella on Aspire with Emma Greed, speaking about what I've spoken about quite a few times, which is the ambition in America versus the UK. I think I'm feeling that a little bit as well. But what I'll say is London is my home, it's my heart, but I have to get away from it to gain clarity, calm, and connection to myself every so often. So the question is what self-care, how are you looking after yourself? And I think just having these circuit breakers a little bit more often is probably quite needed. But otherwise, I'm good. Otherwise, I'm good and I'm excited. And I do feel like I'm in this shedding phase of after this year of playing around on here with my brand since leaving my job, I'm really just at this big moment of reflection. Where do I want to go? What goals do I want to set? Who do I want to hire to make that happen? What support do I need? And I'm now in a position to make that all happen, and it's very exciting. It's just a lot. It's just a lot. And I absolutely love it. I can't believe that I get to do this for work. This is my job that I get to look forward to doing every single day. I love it. But I have just such big, audacious goals that I hold myself accountable to. I don't know really what I've said for the last 3 minutes, but as you can tell, there's just a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings, a lot of excitement. And with that, this is going to be my last video for a little while. Not a little while, that's so dramatic. That is literally so dramatic. I think I'm going to take 2 weeks off. Maybe 3. But I'll be back. I'll probably be back in September. And I'm going to be back bigger, bolder, better, more structured, more seamless, more valuable for you than ever before. We're doing a big recalibration of what YouTube looks like. And I have had the best year, like literally the best year posting vlogs. But it's a lot, and it really tested me, And August is always a quiet month. So I'm gonna keep recalibrating, resetting. I'm working with some amazing people. And if you think you've had value from this channel, you've had like 5% of what you're gonna get. It's going to be high value content going forward in different formats, and we're going to test and experiment going forward. But it would be amazing for me if you in the comments could let me know, not your favorite episode like necessarily, but like what you love to see from me on here. Do you like these sit down chatty Q&As? Do you prefer when it's like 300 miles an hour and you are a fly on the wall in the rooms? Do you prefer when I get the whiteboard out and I go through a structure or a framework and I explain that to you in detail? What do you enjoy? If it's a mix of everything, that's also amazing, because I can keep the mix. There's no right or wrong here, but that would be really, really helpful to inform this next chapter on YouTube, which I'm so excited for. So yeah, that's it from me for a couple of weeks. Lucky for you, there's about 60 episodes to binge through. If you haven't watched them all, there's plenty of hours of footage to consume and watch. And I just need to take a little moment to step back, bring in the right people so that we can jump forward again. I feel like we had this massive jump and now we need a moment of like reflection before you do the next big jump. And by the way, I know people won't like this. People don't like it when you jump to the next chapter, the next stage. But I'm jumping for you, with you. Like, I'm letting you know that I'm jumping. We're going to jump together and it's going to be bigger and better than ever before. So yeah, hope you have a lovely rest of your summer if you're in the UK. If you're not, enjoy wherever you are. I've given enough recommendations in this episode to hopefully keep you going. And yeah, the back catalogue is there waiting for you when you need it, when you need a little fix. And I will see you before you even notice that I've been gone. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you very soon. Bye.